Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ID Talks. ID Talks is a series of webinars that is brought to you by Salto Inclusion and Diversity Resource Center. And this spring 2025, ID Talk is having a closer look at municipal youth work practices and strategies gathered by Europe Goes Local. And Europe Goes Local wants to strengthen the local youth work, build bridges between local and European level, in line with the European youth work agenda. We have started our ID Talks 2 weeks ago with an introduction of what is EGL, the Europe Goes Local, and now starting today, we will be looking into diverse practices and different formats of youth work in local communities of different sizes. Today, ID Talks Village. Young people live in small rural communities and are often overlooked. They don't have enough access to different opportunities. At the same time, limited resources invested in smaller communities tend to be more significant and more visible. So today, with Victor-Catalin Toma, we are going to discuss the advantages and disadvantages, as well as peculiarities of youth work development in villages. Victor is the best person in Europe to talk about it. He has spent 15 last years focusing on building communities and empowering young people at the local level, eventually founding his own organization, Active Development Association. And he is also leading European Youth Village program that is also one of Romania's largest rural youth movements. I don't want to share more about Victor because I know he will tell about himself as well. Without further ado, Victor, you get the floor.
Thank you so much, Anna, and hi, everybody. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to share with you what I'm doing in Romania, what we managed to build here, but also to bring to you some perspective from the grassroots, from actually working with young people from the villages. And I hope this meeting today will be both inspiring, but at the same time, for me, I will take this meeting as a networking event, but because at the end, I will have an invitation for you all, and I hope to actually meet you in person at the European Rural Youth Summit this year, a place where we will be able, to develop even more these topics and actually talk how inclusion is done locally in villages and what is our roles as youth workers, youth organizers, or other professionals or enthusiasts in the field of rural youth work. So just a little bit about myself. Firstly, I'm talking about rural areas because I myself am from a village. I grew up in a village in northeast Romania. I faced firsthand, the challenges that young people in rural areas are facing. For example, when I was in school, I was actually, doing the studies, for my high school in a city. Sometimes I had to even wake up at 4 a.m., just to be able to go to the high schools, hitchhiking, or even walking for 10 kilometers through snow during the winter because, the buses were not entering in the village. Then at the school, I felt the stigma of being that kid from the countryside. I felt the discrimination, but also, what was most frustrating for me was the fact that I was not able, to attend youth events, not able to attend activities because I was depending on a bus, and if I was losing that bus, I was not able anymore to go back home. And this made me both frustrated, and sometimes even ashamed of being, from a village. Things that actually changed, in the afterwards. So unfortunately, this is not a singular story. It's not only my story, but it's a story of so many young people from rural areas, from Romania and across Europe. So this is why this was a motivation for me to actually work with rural youth and to try to empower the rural youth, my friends, in order to become change makers, but not only change makers in their own communities, but change makers of their own lives. So for the last 15 years, I've been a youth worker, I've been a trainer, I'm a community organizer, especially a youth organizer. And I always try to focus on empowering young people, especially with a focus on those from rural areas and vulnerable communities. At the end of high school, I also became a volunteer. Then during college, I was able, to get involved even more into youth work. I was uh, I was discovering, the Youth in Action program, the previous program, before Erasmus Plus, and starting building step by step with a group of colleagues. We started building, the Active Development Association, actually a youth organization that, aimed to empower young people. And actually, more than empowering young people, it was about how you build power into the local communities, how you build power among young people, and how young people start having uh, they have something to say into the decision making process. Also, since 2018, I'm coordinating the European Youth Village program, a movement dedicated to seeing rural youth not only as beneficiaries but as architects of their future and of their present. I mean, what is our mission statement at ADA is that, the biggest lie that was ever told to young people is that young people are the future, because we do strongly believe, and I do strongly believe, that young people are the present. And this is the moment when young people, should get involved. This is the moment when young people should be helped to get involved and to give them, the right tools and skills, to actually get involved into changing their communities, changing their lives, and making this world a better place. It sounds stereotypical, but it is about that. It's about that in the end. So let's go a little bit further, and I will want to tell you a little bit more about the context in Romania, especially when we think about what are the challenges that rural youth are facing. So, firstly, Romania's villages are home of nearly half of our country population. Moreover, 60% of the young people with the age between 14 and 18 years old are actually living in villages, and often they are facing limited opportunities, fewer prospects for personal and professional growth. And what is sad is the fact that when, for example, we started the European Youth Village program, there were a lot of voices at national level, both from media, from national authorities, saying, "Why do we want to build something for rural youth? Because we don't have young people in rural areas." That anyway, if there are young people in rural areas, they will move out, they will go to cities, they will move abroad. So why building something for someone that anyway will live? And I think this was, one of the most frustrating things, because as I said earlier, we do have a lot of young people in the villages. And yet, all most of the funding, most of the resources are going to the big cities rather than to these small communities. Also, something else that was shocking was, especially from a perspective of policies that were seeing young people only as young farmers. So especially when you're thinking, about young people from villages, seeing them as young farmers, seeing them as only people responsible, for the traditions and the customs, the old customs, which actually ignores, the interest of young people. We need to find out, what do these young people want? Are they really interested in farming? If yes, that's very cool. We should provide them all the support they need for that. But what if they want to do something else? So we were trying to find what is that something else? What are the actual challenges, that young people are facing? And one of the challenges we faced was the fact that when we were asking young people, what do you need? What do you want, to happen in your own village? A lot of young people were replying, I don't know. And this happened because, they never been asked before. So when you are not asked before what do you want, then you cannot think about it. Also, when you do not know what opportunities exist, it's impossible to know that you are lacking in that particular opportunity. So this motivated us, to work even more on actually giving visibility to these challenges that young people are facing and always asking and listening. Because one of the challenges, or it's not necessarily a challenge, but it's a personal perspective regarding rural youth work in general, and at least in Romania, there are organizations, doing activities with young people, but most of the time it's happening that they are seeing these young people only as beneficiary, and if you really want to create a change in the village, then you need, to see the young people as someone who are capable, to create the change, as someone who are capable, to create these opportunities that they need. So, in general, the dialogue between young people and decision makers in the villages is missing. Also, the decision makers in villages, they have this false impression that they are doing so much things for the young people, that they do that the youth work at local level, it's so developed, even though what they understand through youth work is that, yeah, we do have a dance group that are dancing, folklore, traditional dancing. And yes, when it's the official day of a national hero whatsoever, they are going to bring flowers to the statue. So that's youth work for decision makers, for so many authorities and villages. And also they consider that that's enough. And of course, that's not enough. Young people from the villages, they need to be seen, they need to be listened, they need to be supported, they need to be promoted. And this was my motivation as a rural kid too. I wanted to be visible. I wanted, to meet other young people from other villages with whom I could have just started, planning stuff, sharing stuff, learning together. And again, this is something that we are trying to change, through my work. So I will go next to some, like key obstacles that young people are facing in rural areas nowadays, just to have, a little bit of more deeper understanding. So for in Romania, we do face a limited access. Young people are facing a limited access to education and training. So a lot of rural schools suffer from underfunding, outdated resources. Like if you think about the manuals are, I don't know, 5, 10 years old. Also, young people often have fewer opportunities for extracurricular activities, for internships, or for specialized trainings. And, like the non-formal education in villages sometimes is not non-existing. Also, if we think about transportation and mobility in the villages, so many villages lack reliable, affordable public transportation, which makes it difficult for young people to commute to nearby schools, universities, or workplaces. Also, the high travel costs and limited schedules isolates young people from broader opportunities and social engagement. And if you remember, as I said, it was impossible for me to stay longer in the city, after high school, to participate, in activities, in youth activities, because I was depending on the bus. And this is the story, a story that goes on. And I remember something that, some young people from a village that had the European Youth Village title, they were saying that sometimes if it's snowing one day, there will rain for 3 days in their bus. And that because, of the bad, infrastructure and the bad buses. So what else young people from villages from Romania are facing. So there is a shortage in youth-friendly spaces and infrastructure. So there are not enough, and almost inexistent, the venues that are dedicated to young people. And sometimes young people, the only thing that they have is an only shop or only one bar in the village, and that's the social hotspot of the village because there is not something else. So this makes harder for young people to actually organize local initiative, or simply socialize. Also, there is a lack of support in structures and funding, especially if we think about the youth structures, about youth NGOs or informal groups. Also, there are not enough youth workers or people to guide the young people in the villages. There is also a low representation in decision making. As I said earlier, most of the time decision makers and adults may undervalue young people input, so they are overlooking the actual needs of the young people, and they use this system of thinking that yes, we know best, we know better for you. We do know what young people need because we've been young people. But then the needs are changing, and also those of you who are youth workers, you know how was working with young people 5 years ago, or how is to work with the young people now after the pandemic. Like all the needs changed, and in the villages, the needs changed too. Also, other problems that they are facing, there are still stereotypes and a social stigma regarding rural youth. So a lot of times these stereotypes portray young people as less motivated or less capable to do stuff. Also, these stereotypes can limit the self-esteem, discourage the community involvement, and reinforce the desire to leave their villages for bigger cities. Also, I remember, a personal story regarding this. So when I wanted, when I finished, the gymnasium, in the village, and I wanted to go to a city, and I wanted to go actually, to one of the best high schools in my region. So some of my teachers told me that I should not go there because I'm from a village and I will not make it because there is a difference. So a rural kid should never go to that very good high school. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, there are a lot of stories like this where young people from villages are mostly guided to, I don't know, technical high schools or professional schools or vocational training schools, even though they are able to follow a theoretical high school. They are able to follow their dreams, but they just need the right people to guide them towards these opportunities. Also, in the villages are facing this digital divide, and there is a limited connectivity. There are still many villages with slow internet, with limited data coverage, or no internet access at all. um, Also, there is an insufficient and inaccessible public services, especially if we think about healthcare, mental health. Mental health is still a taboo topic in a lot of villages, and also like for different specific needs that young people have. And especially if we think about young people with disabilities who in the villages, especially because of the lack of infrastructure, they are invisible. It also happens a lot of times, authorities, if you ask them, so are there any people with disabilities, in the villages, they would say, no, look, I mean, look on the streets, there is no one. And then, of course, there is no one because you don't have the right infrastructure for that, you know? So yes, young people from villages have problems, but then there is an intersectional, we should have an intersectional approach on the vulnerabilities of the young people. Also, the villages are facing, young people are facing, employment challenges and brain drain. So there are a lot of people that are moving, to the cities, or they are moving abroad. And as I said earlier, there is a lack of intersectional approach to inclusion, especially if you think about marginalized group as Roma young people, queer people, or young people with disabilities. So we need to, especially when we talk about rural youth work, we should have this intersectional approach and try go beyond the geographical barriers. So this is a very, very important thing that we are trying all the time to discuss with the decision makers, especially at national level, because it happened a lot of times for them not to understand why we do need dedicated youth policies for rural youth and to have this intersectional approach on their vulnerabilities. And it was a big struggle for us, the civil society, to make them understand. But hopefully, things are changing, which is great. So to be able, to create the change, and now we will go to what we are doing to change this. So we'll go into also to the next slide. So to talk a little bit about what is approach of rural youth ecosystem and the European Youth Village program. So what we do. So basically, we look at the villages as youth ecosystems, where young people are in the center of the ecosystem. And then, there are different components. And then we are trying to tackle each component of the rural ecosystem at the same time. So the components of a rural youth ecosystem, and now we'll go to the next one, to the next slide, is firstly we need to have in mind, the vision. So when it's about vision, we need to think about legislation, policies, strategies, work plans, strategic programs, and so on. Then when we talk about human resources, it's about the youth workers, the volunteers, the paid personnel, policy makers, and so on. So who are those who are working with the young people in the villages? Then it's about the youth work itself, information and counseling or other services, activities, projects that we do in the villages. Also, youth infrastructure is another component, especially if we talk about youth centers, if we talk about friendly spaces where young people can engage. Also youth structures, if we talk about, NGOs, youth NGOs, informal groups, youth forums, or other consultative bodies. And of course there is the funding part, so even if it's private, public, and funding especially for youth. So, but also there are problems at each of these levels. So what we were able, to identify in the last years while working and using this approach was that, especially regarding vision, the rural communities do not have a long-term vision, and young people are not included in shaping the vision for their villages. I mean, it's happening a lot of times, like especially every each 4 years when there are the local elections, you know that the candidates are coming up with a plan, but those plans are not actually included the young people, or young people are not even asked what they need, so there needs to be included in the plans of the candidates. Also, the villages don't have a youth strategy. They are lacking a local youth strategy that actually should strategically tackle, the needs of the young people. Also, there is a low level of participation in public decision making and limited dialogue with decision makers in general. Regarding the human resources, there is an insufficient number of youth specialists in rural areas, opportunities or will lack opportunities for young people to professionalize in the field of youth. So something that we are trying to do, for example, it's a joke that I'm usually using, is that the European Youth Village is like a shop of hats, and we are giving hats to young people because sometimes they need to take off the hat of being a young person and take the hat of being a youth worker, of a youth organizer, of an advocacy officer, and so on. So it's very important how we actually train young people in the villages to assume these roles that don't exist enough in the villages. We need to empower them to become the youth workers at local level. Also, when it's about youth work, there are few activities for young people in rural areas. Most often, these activities are organized by schools, are focused primarily on traditions and public holidays, as I also said earlier, without reflecting young people interests in the yeah, we are on the right slide here with the youth ecosystem. So yeah, also when we talk about infrastructure, villages lacking youth center. There are not youth centers. There are no spaces for the young people to meet. Regarding the youth structures, most of the time there are no youth organizations in the villages. There are no youth forums or other consultative bodies. Also, young people, there are some young people, we do have initiatives, but then they are even, becoming, transforming and developing informal groups, but they don't have the support from the adults. And regarding funding, they don't have the skills. Young people don't have the skills to access funding, and sometimes, the funding at local level is not available. So these are the main problems regarding, the youth ecosystem in Romania, what we are able to notice. So what we did, we tried to create a program that was using, because, I was like saying also earlier, we miss this, we miss this, we miss this. But then the question is, what do, villages have? And we strongly think that, the most important resource that villages have are actually the young people. So we are trying to use this resource and do something with it, so do something with the young people. So we built the European Youth Village program, which was born, from the simple idea. So if young people lead community initiative in their own villages, they can create immediately and visible results because they are in the villages, they are there. So they can do the change, but they just need, the right guidance and the right context for that. So our vision at the European Youth Village program was, to develop local youth ecosystems where youth, local authorities, and stakeholders all collaborate to make their community more inclusive, dynamic, and ready, future ready. So everything started with a title, the European Youth Village title. So we did this is how we started the European Youth Village program, with this title, which was that context for the young people, the right motivation and context for the young people to form those initiative groups that they were going to do stuff. And we can go to the next slide. So the European Youth Village, it started, it's a competition. It's a competition for the title of the European Youth Village of the Year. And there are the young people who are the ones applying to get this title. So the initiative to get this title comes from the young people. And the young people are then approaching the other community members. They are also approaching the authorities and adults and schools and whoever else is in the village. And they usually want, to apply to apply for the title because they want to produce that change. They got the right motivation, and the skills to produce the change that they want in the villages. So to be able to apply for the title, the young people are preparing an application. But first, we do have some national events, some national trainings where young people are coming. They are finding out about, the European Youth Village program and the title. And then, the European Youth Village team is actually helping young people going back into their communities, reaching out to their friends, reaching out to the other young people, and actually building, an informal group. They also start organizing consultations with the young people, because also it's different if an adult comes to a village and asks, the young people, what do you need, than actually other young people, from the same village, actually asking their peers, what do you need, what do you want, look, we have this context, what should we do? So this motivates more the young people. So the young people are finding out, what are the needs in the community, and then they are starting building an action plan. And actually, this action plan is the one that they are using as an application, as a candidacy, to candidate for the title. The action plan is evaluated, and then they get the European Youth Village title. So the title is granted for 1 year, during which the villages, the young people work to implement this detailed action plan, driven by the young participation, by youth participation and leadership. Also, this initiative not only boosts the involvement in local processes, but also fosters a culture of participative democracy and community development at local level. So the title provides the context. And then, the young people are the ones creating the magic. They are organizing non-formal education festivals, workshops, trainings on various relevant topics for the young people. They are organizing awareness campaigns on various topics, cultural activities from reading clubs to artistic performances by youth, sport events, but also, they start to focus more on support services, including on mental health and sexual education for youth, career orientation activities, game nights, community meetings, debates, establishing youth forums in the local community. They are building youth strategies, but also they are convincing authorities to give them a space, and the young people are actually transforming this space into community centers, into youth centers. And I will just give you some examples of what actually young people manage to do. So you remember that when I told you earlier about that story, from a village, it was from Poyana village. They had the title, the European Youth Village title last year, about snowing one day, raining 3 days in the bus. They actually tried to do a lot of advocacy campaigns at local level with their mayor, at regional level, but also, directly with the company that was, providing the transportation. And they even received threats, from the drivers, that they should have stopped, not go further with their campaign. But they did. They did. And in the end, all the buses were changed into new buses. The schedule of the buses was changed and make it they become more relevant for the time that young people needed, to go to school or to go to and to come back from school. So they managed to do this. Also, other examples, are from Hello Chase. I remember in the beginning I told you the story of the song. So this team, they managed to convince the authorities to give them a building that was not used. The building was not even finished. Um, and the young people, they applied for funding for European Solidarity Corps, and then they used this money, to change how this building looked like. And now it's one of the biggest youth centers in a village in Europe. And it's fully managed by the young people from the village. And this is not a singular example. I mean, we have so many villages that had the European Youth Village title that managed to convince the authorities to give them buildings, and now they opened youth centers and they are active there, organizing, weekly activities for their peers. Also, young people manage to convince, the local decision makers or regional decision makers to start creating funding programs for youth work. So finally, villages start having, funding programs for youth work. So young people were able, and also those who wanted, to apply actually to receive funding, and to be able to do the activities in their villages. And also such stories, there are so many such stories that are good examples of how young people, they got the power to do stuff. Also, what they got from holding the title. So they develop at local level the local ecosystem, the youth ecosystem. They start building relationship with the local authorities, and the local authorities are starting seeing young people, and not only just seeing the young people, but seeing them as equal partners. Also, the young people got the visibility and the recognition that they deserve, and also, they get the resources that they need, to do all these changes. So to get European Youth Village title, we are opening each year since 2019. We are opening, a call every each year. And so far, 22 villages had the European Youth Village title. We are now, one of our focusing now is to expand officially the European Youth Village program at European level. So villages from all over Europe to be able to apply for this title. That's why we actually started doing the European Rural Youth Summit. So the European Rural Youth Summit and the National Youth Summit is another component of the European Youth Village program that appear because, young people need its context where to meet, where to discuss, where to network, where to learn together, but also to connect with national and European decision makers. So we did the European Rural Youth Summit for 2 years in Romania in 2023 and 2024. This year, the summit will take place at the end of August in Slovakia. It will be organized together with the Slovakian National Agency for Erasmus+. Hopefully next year, it will be in Belgium. We are now also discussing with the national agencies there. And also Slovakia and Belgium are getting ready, to pilot the program there too. And also, like, this summit in Slovakia will continue the focus on expanding the European Youth Village program. So I'm inviting you already. Soon we will also publish the call. So you'll be able to join, also finding out more about the European Youth Village program, but also start, you can also replicate it in your own countries. Also, Italy and Finland, for example, are getting ready, and piloting the program. So this is something huge, especially because if you remember, I'm a rural kid, so seeing how all this grows and expands, it makes me really proud. But also, it's the biggest proof that if young rural youth are given, the right guidance, they can, really change the world, and they can really shape their present and future. But it doesn't all sound, it all sounds really cool, but there are also challenges, because it's not easy to organize all these and to do all this. So now I will come up with some input from the challenges that these groups of young people are facing at local level. So first, one of the biggest challenge is securing adequate support and resources. So even if the young people do have great ideas, they often struggle to find funding or practical support from the local authorities. Also, without consistent funding, it's hard to maintain the momentum, and to make their work sustainable. So they need, to secure this funding on the long term. So something else that we do is to help these informal groups to become youth organizations, and to, to make it easier for them to secure the funding. Also, they need to overcome the skepticism and bureaucracy, because, young people regularly encounter a slow moving administrative environment. uh, and also, a lot of times it's happening that the decision makers, the adults, even their parents, to be skeptical and to not to give the young people, the right support. It's even, it happened a lot of times, for young people from these informal groups to come to me and to tell me, but my parents told me that I should not get involved anymore, because I'm not gaining anything from it. So I should stop. I should focus on something else. I shouldn't get involved in the community. Or as I said earlier, sometimes, and it's real, they can even, it happened even to receive threats from the authorities. Like, if you don't stop, I will take care of, I don't know, of something else. So they were receiving threats even from the authorities that they should stop doing stuff at local level. Also, another challenge that they are facing is in building and retaining a committed team, especially because as a rural youth, and if you want to go to your university, then you need, to move. You need to go to a bigger city, and then if you don't have a university near your village, then you need to go to the capital city, which it might be very far, and then it's impossible to stay connected with what's happening at local level. So it's very important. So this is something that we always recommend to the young people. Like, it's for them, it should be a transversal objective, to start building the group and bringing new generations and training the others and reach out to the others, and to be sure that when they need to leave, that there will still be a group organizing stuff at local level. And about this, about moving, because I will just go a little bit off topic, because it happens a lot of times, for people to tell us that, oh, I love that European Youth Village program exists because it keeps the young people in the villages. And I'm always replying, this is not that we want. We don't do the European Youth Village program because we want, to keep the young people in the villages. But what we want is that while young people are in the villages, to have all the opportunities they need. So when they will want to move, to be able to take an informed decision, and this decision to, be the best for them. Because it happened a lot of times. And for young people to be told that they are not able to do anything. Then a lot of young people from Romania, from villages moved abroad. They tried to find, a job abroad. Sometimes, most of the times, like in constructions or very difficult and low paid jobs, they were becoming frustrated by, by this. And now, for example, in Romania, because the right wing is growing everywhere in Europe, so let's say the standard profile for someone who would vote for an extremist party would be a young man from rural areas who, not even finishing school, moved abroad, got frustrated about that, moved back to Romania, and they live with that frustration. And it's important. It's one of our focuses on how we actually bring these values, democracy, inclusion, solidarity, how we bring them into the village and make the young people understand, the importance of this, of diversity, of inclusion, and everything else. Also, other challenges that young people are facing locally when they are organizing things is to managing the diverse needs and interests of the other young people. So it's important to see the villages as a very diverse communities. The villages are diverse, even though there are not so many people. They are diverse, and then they need, to have in mind um, all these challenges and needs of the young people. Also, when they plan activities, they need to show they should have in mind, the all the groups. Also, they need to acknowledge also the specific challenges of the other vulnerable groups as Roma, LGBTQIA plus young people with disabilities, and to be able, to build programs and projects that are truly inclusive for all the young people. And sometimes we need, because young, when they are entering the program, they are coming with sometimes with a set of values that was influenced by their parents, by their, I don't know, what they hear around them. And villages are, in general very traditional. So for them, at the first hand is for them, a shock value when they realize that yes, there are other people that are having different challenges around me. There are, different people that I never thought about. So this is also an internal struggle of how we make young people, and in general youth working in villages really truly inclusive, and to respect the rights of all the people. Also, another challenge that, young people are facing, regarding their local youth work is sustaining enthusiasm after the title year ends. So that's why we started, in the last few years, we started to do something that the village, because there are more villages that get the European Youth Village title, every year, than the village that, does the most, has the biggest impact. They are eligible to receive the title for another year, and then in that other year it will host the national or the European events we are organizing in the under the European Youth Village umbrella. So also we developed an alumni network. So the villages that had the title in the past are part of this alumni network, and starting with last year, in this pre-selection process of, selecting European youth villages, actually the alumni network are the one choosing who gets further, who gets the title, and so on. So I'm always saying that yes, European Youth Village program started with Started with few people. We are two organizations that we are coordinating this program. Active Development Association from my organization, but also Go Free Association from Cluj, from where our other colleagues. But also, I'm always saying that this community and the governance of the project, of the program itself, it's so big because all these young people that we reach out, they are becoming part of this governance of this community, and they are becoming also those who are shaping how the program itself is developing. But yes, the title is just one thing that we do. As I said earlier, we do have an intersectional approach. We do have an ecosystem approach. So there are also different other components of the program, and we can go to the next slide. And I want to tell you a little bit about, what something else that we did, especially when we realized that there are not the challenges of young people are not well known at national level. So what we did was to do a 2 years research to actually ask people what do they want, and we collected all this into the White Charter of Rural Youth, which is a policy recommendation document that sets the vision and priorities for the rural communities that various levels of public authorities should constantly follow. So the White Charter aims to empower rural youth to be active, visible, and involved. It sets 100 strategic direction for the authorities, and we actually met with more than 1,000 mayors from rural areas from Romania to tell them about these priorities. We also created a guide, like an implementation guide for the White Charter. So basically, we took all the 100 strategic directions and build an action plan for all of them. So now a mayor, if they want, okay, in our village, we want to set this as a priority, then they also have the how to there. So the implementation plan. So it's the White Charter, but then also to give visibility to the young people, we also organize each year the Rural Youth Awards, to give visibility. It's a ceremony, to award, the projects, the young people, the youth workers from villages who did a lot of things in the previous year. Also, there is the informal network of rural youth, which actually was created to be the voice of young people on national level. Also, the ENGO Rural Platform is a federation that connects the youth organization, and it aims to actually support the development of youth structures in rural areas. We also decided why not young people from rural areas, why not they should have, also a national day. So we started from 2 years ago to organize the Rural Youth National Day as an umbrella event where, there are activities everywhere in the country, in the villages. Also, as I said, we have a European Youth Village alumni network. We have a EU values ambassadors in the villages, but also a rural newsroom, because we realized that, the stories about villages are not enough covered. So why not train, young journalists from young people from villages, and actually they to be the ones, saying the stories of their villages. And now I will just go a little bit further with the last two slides. So because if it's about the inclusion, what for me, besides all these programs components, from my point of view, one of the most important things that the European Youth Village program managed to do was to build a safe and inclusive community that rural youth can feel part of. So by participating in the program, the young people found a community that supports them. They feel included, they feel heard, they feel visible. So that's something very, very important, and especially for me, as a rural kid, that was something important to find my community. And some advices from the field regarding how to foster inclusion. So on the next slide, so firstly, it's important to understand that inclusion in rural areas is more than invitation. So especially in a rural setting, real obstacles as transportation, internet access, or cost can prevent young people from participating. So you need to go there. You need to meet the young people where they are, even if it's a schoolyard, a small shop, or even door to door. And actually we did that when we actually pilot the European Youth Village title for the first time. We chose 4 villages, and in one village, we actually went door to door to ask around in the village where are young people living, and then talking with the young people and invite them to a discussions the following day. Also, we need to understand that everybody's role counts. So wherever you are a youth worker, teacher, volunteer, local official, you can be a catalyst for youth engagement. So start by truly listening to young people and go and map out the youth needs. So don't assume, ask directly. Ask the young people, what do they want? What do they need? Also, trust youth. And with this, I will close. Trust youth and don't patronize them. You are not the savior. As a youth worker, you are not the savior when you go in a village. And have that in mind. Also, blend tradition, but with innovation, because it's also about bringing something new, but also giving young people something that they are familiar with. And don't forget, include local officials and keep in touch with them. So these are, let's say, my advices from this years of implementing the program. And with that, thank you so much.
So we were talking, we would like to hear more about the measurable outreach of the how much rural youth that you are kind of tackling, or like there's ongoing activities in how many places, or like more smart outcomes. And also, how did you engage young people? You said about the first time in the first village, we heard that how you went door to door, but how the other processes, and also making their participation sustainable. Because we heard also from our members in the group that they had problems in the sustaining the activities, and we would like to hear some concrete examples about that. And what are the concrete activities that young people chose to organize in those different places? And our last question would be, how did you engage European values into their work? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. This is a challenge now, 5 questions in one, and you still need to answer also the ones that were before. There is also a question from Davide in the chat. Davide, is it a question from you or from your group?
It's a question that was posed by one of the members of our group. It's actually fairly simple and straightforward. And the idea is, let's say that we live in a village, fairly big, fairly small, no matter what, and say that we have quite the phenomenon, quite an immigrational phenomenon there. So big that, in fact, these foreigners do not speak the language, and yet the programs that are there given by the government are not, let's say, enough to either teach the language, teach the manners to live in the place. How do we address this issue of actually include these people here? It's a problem that we found it was common between my personal area and also someone else's area. So I think it's worth to pose it as a question.
Thank you very much for speaking on behalf of your groups. I think we still have time for Judith to maybe you can voice your question yourself. I don't have to read it for you. Also, just to let you know that this edition of idtalks, of course, is dedicated to Europe Goes Local. And the coordinator of Europe Goes Local is Judith, who is here with us. So Judith, please take the floor and maybe try to compress your multiple questions into just one or two.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Anna. And thanks to all of you for being here. And Victor, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and very passionate and nice presentation. My question is based on my limited experience, is that in the rural context, it's really difficult to sell the idea of youth work as such, because there are very limited resources usually, and as you said, people have very limited thinking, like decision makers have limited thinking about what youth work might be. How do you transmit your messages? How do you plant the idea of quality youth work, and what does this bring? And also it's linked to the previous question about European values. How can you make sure that your ideas which are coming from a European organization and network can feed into a local process, because it seems you can do it, but what's the way? Tell us the secret.
Okay, so Anna, you have the microphone off.
Master task, 10 minutes, all the questions, you go.
Yes. As you notice, it might be difficult, to answer to everything in 10 minutes, but I will try my best. I usually love talking a lot about this program. So I will start with, the first outreach. So what we did when we start this program as a pilot program was to choose. We were 4 organizations. Each organization chose a village that they had access to, and we did the pilot program there. One of the villages, as I said earlier, we did community organizing door to door to find out where are the young people. During that year that we pilot the program, and we were there close to the young people, from the villages, we helped developing this informal groups. We were very visible. We focused a lot on actually showing the people, what's happening in these villages, what the young people are managing to do. And also related to the questions, the concrete activities that young people are doing and how they are choosing this, it's actually based on what are the needs in the communities. So when the young people are doing those consultations and ask the others, so what would you like? So if those young people are mentioning, I would like a festival, I would like, a course on mental health, I would like, to have, I don't know, each month to have like an open air cinema or something like that. So basically, then, the young people are trying to put in practice what the others told them. So during that 1 year that we were, piloting the program, we make it very visible. We focused almost all our resources in how to make that visible, on social media, so other young people, to be able, to see it. Also, other decision makers, other organizations, and so on. But also, with different other projects that we had, we were always, talking about the European Youth Village program, like all everything else that we are doing, we are bringing this to the table. We also participated to different, European or national events organized by different other organizations, and we were bringing forward, the program and the needs of the young people. So that's how we built the community at the beginning, and then it became easy. Like when we launched in 2019 the first ever call for European Youth Villages, we received around 9 applications. And then, because we had a pandemic in 2020, so we try, to do it as much as possible online. So we didn't stop. So during the pandemic, like the program went on, even though the activities, started to be online and so on. But we continued, to do activities and to make them visible. So in this way, we started forming a community around our program. And every each year, for example, now every each year there is 1,000 new rural youth that participates in activities related to European Youth Village, directly connected with the European Youth Village title or with the other components like the European Rural Youth Summit or the National Youth Summit, or the newspaper, the rural newspaper, or the EU values ambassadors, and so on. So we try to build a community among under the umbrella of the program, and in this way it makes it easier to pass it forward so other young people are finding out. So regarding the measurement, we do, so young people, when they are getting the title, they have a mentor from the governors of the program, so a mentor from us, and this mentor is there, also to act as a coach, but at the same time is helping young people, to monitor what they are doing. So after each activity, the young people, they have an online form, and they are, just checking, adding, okay, we had this event, it was about that, this was the number of participants, it involved decision makers or not, and these are the outcomes. So we are trying, to centralize everything. But also in 2023, we did a deep evaluation on the impact of the program at national level. And actually, when we developed the informal network of rural youth and the Engo Rural Platform, the federation, these two, let's call them components or structures, were developed based on the results, on the evaluation of the impact. So to be relevant. So we are constantly following also that. So what we are managed to change, not only locally, but at national level. Sustainability indeed is a challenge, especially when we think both at local level, because as I said earlier, young people are moving out. So our focus is also on helping them, to make their group grow, transform their informal group uh, into an organization, into a youth organization. Also, we connect them with funding, so young people start, writing projects on European Solidarity Corps, like to get, for solidarity projects. Like we have, for example, a village. They had the title last year, and this year is the second year, and they already have 6 approved solidarity projects. And for tomorrow, because tomorrow is the deadline, they are already preparing, 6 other projects to apply. So in this way, they are securing the funding that they need if, the local authorities would not give them money. Also, regarding how we transmit the messages, it was always very important for us, to use an easy language, like to make it easy for young people to understand and to make them, connect with us. And as I said earlier, you should never go to a village, and because if young people are feeling that you are patronizing them, if the young people are feeling that you don't trust them, then they will just run away. So it's important what is the attitude that you have, so that's how you actually connect the young people. And regarding the quality youth work, for us, it's when we do organize, the national activities or whatever event, our focus is a lot on the quality of youth work. Like we want our events to be quality events. And all the time, the young people, the groups that are coming to participate into the events, activities or projects that we organized as the governance, they are taking those measures and implementing in their local work, in the local youth work. So, for example, if they see that we have, for example, a set of measures for inclusion, and to make our events truly inclusive, they are trying to copy that and to adapt it to their own village. And everything, I don't know, from the safety and protection of participants to how you integrate the needs and the feedback of the young people and to everything else. So they are replicating. So it also is for us as a governance is important how we develop ourselves as a governance, how we develop the quality of what we do, because we know that the young people see us as models and they are replicating it in the local youth work as villages. And regarding the European values, so that's why we even set up this network of European values ambassadors, which is a network of young people that are passionate about EU topics, that want to learn more about European Union. So what they did, first we had some trainings with them. It was a national call for rural youth who wanted to get involved. Then we had some trainings for them, and then they were the ones, going from village to village in the region, reaching out to schools, to other schools, not their own schools, and talking, can we organize this event, to talk with the young people and blah, blah, blah. And they are young people who are 16, 17, and doing that. Because in this way, if it's like peer-to-peer learning, it goes better. And also, young people understood the benefits of EU. They understood the opportunities that EU gives us, in the youth sector, and they are started feeling as European. And when you feel that you are part of the Europe of a European community, of course you want, to protect that community, and that one way to protect that community is to do the outreach and tell to the others, look, these are the values that I believe, and this is why I do believe in these values. And I know there was also a questions regarding, the foreigners that are coming to the villages, they're moving to another country in the villages. In Romania, we don't have in the villages, such cases, so it never happened, to have to tackle this. But as I said earlier, when the young people are applying for the title, they are basically identifying the needs in their village. And then the action plan that they are building is to, it's aiming to be relevant for what is the local context. Like, for example, if in a village, there is, I don't know, one particular need, they will do that. But what we did had, in Romania, we do have a large Hungarian community, for example. And this year we have the second Hungarian village that has the European Youth Village title, in Romania. And for example, one in the previous village that they had a title in 2023, one objective that they set as a group was to learn Romanian. Because most of the young people in that village, they don't know how to speak Romanian. So they wanted to use this context, to connect the young people, from their village to other young people from other villages to have, the opportunities to practice Romanian. So it was a local need. Even though for us, for example, as a governance, we were speaking and doing the mentoring with these young people in English, to be able to to communicate. But it was something that they needed. So what we are always trying to do is to focus, to tell people, because it's not about you don't have a list of activities that you should check when you do the program, when you implement the plan, but it's about actually building a plan that is relevant for you as a group of young people, for your own village that is from a specific region, and so on. And what we use as the main method is community organizing. So I always was saying that European Youth Village, it is a community organizing program. So, and when it's about community organizing, the main idea is that you identify leaders, you empower them, you help them to make groups, and then you help those groups, to identify by themselves what are the problems that they are facing, what are their needs, and then you are building power so they get involved in solving those needs, regardless what those needs are. So I do hope that I answered most of the questions. If not, you had in the presentation, I don't know if you'll get the presentation, but my email address is Victor-Catalin Toma. So basically my full name at gmail.com. So you can anytime just write me there, and I will be more than happy to reply and give you more details about what we do and what are the methods and solutions that we do practice. And thank you again for all your questions.
I don't know how you did it, Victor, but you did it. So thank you very much for addressing all the little and small and big questions, and also linking between them and in a very logical way. And I think it is really giving a lot of insight to what you do and also what others could do based on your experience. But for the moment, before we wrap up, just for a quick minute, it's my favorite part of the ID Talks, I have to confess. We are going to give the floor to Olaja, our colleague who has been in the background making graphic notes of today's presentation and today's talk. Please, Olaja, if we are ready to share.
Yes, we are very much. I will share just in a second. You should be able to see the notes. So much cool information, like so much passion. And I mean, we need to make a quick summary. And I think today is very easy. It's just give the chance, give the voice, give the power to youngsters, and they will create beautiful, impactful changes around them. So that's all I can say with all these examples, all these methods, all these programs. At the end of the day, I think, Victor, you did a really good job passing on this huge importance of give them the voice, listen, and not just, assume for them. So thank you for yet again shouting this message into the air. I think it's put in stone. And it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that looks great. That looks really, really great. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Victor, if you want to say some final words before we close the day, the stage is yours for exactly 30 seconds.
So what I would say is just thank you again for giving me this opportunity, to share my work, to share my passion with you, because rural youth work is a passion too. And also, don't forget that young people are the present. And I cannot wait, to meet you all in Slovakia this year at the third edition of the European Rural Youth Summit, where we do have the chance, to go deeper into the topics. But also, we will try actually to develop a policy recommendation for intercultural dialogue and inclusion, in rural areas in Europe. So I cannot wait, to find out all your input and to get to know in person during this event. And thank you again for listening. And I hope, everybody can take out something from today.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you very much to our participants today. It's been really good. And thank you for your questions and your engagement. We are hoping to see you back in 2 weeks from now for the next one of the ID Talks on Europe Goes Local practices. So stay tuned, and thank you very much, and have the nicest rest of your day, or already evening in some places. Bye-bye.